The Supreme Court Wednesday indicated that it agrees with parts of President Trump's travel ban. Justices signaled that they agreed that President Trump has the authority to ban travelers from certain countries in the name of national security. Jan Crawford has the latest.
The court signaled today it would uphold President Trump's travel ban, with the conservative majority suggesting it does not illegally target Muslims. Justice Samuel Alito.
It does not look at all like a Muslim ban. There are other justifications that jump out as to why these particular countries were put on the lists.
The ban lists 5 mostly Muslim countries, as well as North Korea and Venezuela, that the administration says lack proper screening and security measures for people trying to enter the U.S. It's been in force since last December, when the Supreme Court said it could take effect while the justices considered the case.
Let them out! Let them out!
It's a long way from the president's first travel ban in 2017, which covered only Muslim countries and, when it was hastily announced, caused chaos at airports around the world. At least 3 of the court's liberals indicated they think even the current ban goes too far, especially in light of Mr. Trump's statements about Muslims during the campaign.
Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States.
Solicitor General Noel Francisco argued that what Mr. Trump said as a private citizen before taking the oath of office is irrelevant. But Justice Elena Kagan suggested a different view of a president's past statements.
The question is not really what his heart of hearts is. The question is, what are reasonable observers to think?
Right.
And Jan Crawford joins us now. Jan, what did the court's conservatives focus on?
Well, I mean, Elaine, they really looked at the order itself, the actual travel ban declaration that the president signed, and said it was just incredibly detailed, more than really any that they had seen in, recent years, looking at how it was approved by high-level cabinet officials and suggesting that there really was grounds for the president to say there should be a ban on these countries because they lack the proper screening and security measures that U.S. officials need when they're trying to decide whether or not people should be allowed into the United States. So they seem to suggest that there was ample evidence that the president was on solid ground for saying that this ban, tailored in this way, was necessary, and it wasn't the business of the courts to second-guess these national security decisions by a president.
And what about the court's liberal justices? What were their arguments?
Well, I mean, they were pretty active. There was a clear divide, I thought, by at least 3 of those court's liberal justices, and they really talked about kind of the structure of how this ban came into place. Justice Sonia Sotomayor, for example, really kind of hammered the point that Congress had already had a framework for evaluating these kind of visas and which people could be admitted from which countries, and that President Trump, in her words, had really gone well too far beyond that. They also kind of looked at some of the things that he said around this ban and asked about whether these campaign statements that he made that were pretty inflammatory, whether that could be used to kind of gauge intent and whether or not this ban was motivated by anti-Muslim bias.
And on that point, Jan, there was a lot of discussion about the president's comments about Muslims during the campaign. Lawyers for the government said they shouldn't apply in this case. What was their reasoning for that?
Right. I mean, they took a very strong line on that, Elaine. And the attorney for the government said that, when someone is a private citizen, a candidate, what he says or she says then is really irrelevant. But when they take the oath of office, that kind of transforms them into a president. So he saw a real clear divide and argued there was a clear divide between what candidate Trump said and what President Trump said. And then he went on to kind of specifically point out that since he became president, Mr. Trump has said that this is not targeted at Muslims, and he emphasized that this, of course, did not apply to the vast majority of Muslim countries.
Well, how does this case highlight the scope of the president's power regarding immigration?
Oh, that's a great question. And I think one of the real struggles that the court is going to have with this case, and a lot of the legal challenges to some of the Trump administration's initiatives, because historically, some of these national security decisions, I mean, the president will get great leeway. Courts are very reluctant. They don't have all the information. I mean, they're very reluctant to kind of step in and start looking at when a president says something should be done for interests of national security. So the concern is that they would have some kind of ruling that sharply scales back President Trump, but that's also going to apply well down the road to future presidents.
Well, if the Supreme Court upholds the travel ban, would you expect more legal challenges, or is this it?
Well, if they uphold it, this is it. And remember, the Supreme Court already said that it could go into effect back in December while the justices were considering the case. So this would essentially make it permanent, indefinite, until the administration decided that it was no longer necessary.
All right, Jan Crawford at the Supreme Court. Jan, thank you.